We're here at ASRock's booth at Computex 2023, and they sponsored a video for us to go through a whole bunch of their stuff, just gobs and gobs of it, starting off with the Tai Chi. So this right here is the Z790 Tai Chi, and it is a beautiful motherboard. The fastest that we have ever had a CPU going, 6.9 gigahertz, nice, was on this exact board. But the thing was, in order to do that, we had to strip this off. Do you need gears to go really fast? No. Do you need this fancy RGB lighting? You do not. And now, they will just sell you a motherboard that has none of that stuff on it. So this right here is the Tai Chi Lite, what is arguably the best motherboard on the market, and just stripped away all of the stuff that adds to the price. Like for instance, this little piece of aluminum right here. It sure does look fancy, but do you actually need it? Probably not. Going with this guy right here, and I really wish that other motherboard makers would do a similar thing where, you know, you can get the highest of performance, but without all of the nonsense sort of stuff, because like if you're putting this under LN2, you don't need it anyway. Up next, we've got a variety of Phantom Gaming motherboards, going from the not so expensive Lightning to the very feature-rich Nova, but all of them have one thing in common, and it's one of my favorite new features. Watch this right here. Just push there, bam! M.2 just coming right out. Another thing right there. You have your SSD. That was incredibly simple, no tools required. I really do appreciate that on a lot of different motherboards, they're coming out with toolless M.2 solutions, and this is just taking it one step further for that ultimate ease of use. Now on these two guys right here, we have 16 phases for the CPU, but over here on the top end of the line one, we have got a whole 20, but the specs do not stop there. We also have one PCIe Gen 5 slot, that's the one that you can very easily take on, take off, but also we have an additional 5 other Gen 4 slots. So you can basically build a NAS just on your motherboard. That is crazy. For these two here also, they both have Wi-Fi 7 connectivity. Although that said, I don't really know why you'd use it, because they also have 5 gigabit LAN. I would just plug into that. One thing that you don't necessarily see all the time on a motherboard is USB Type-C, but all 3 of these right here have got it, and so does the Tai Chi. So I really do appreciate that little addition. Why did I say addition like that? Of course, you have your brand new motherboard, and you need a sick old GPU to put into it. Now, we have our 7600. This right here is the black one. It comes in at the same MSRP as AMD's reference design, but if you want to spend a little bit more, we have the Steel Legend, and it's white. ASRock said that people have been asking them a whole bunch, we want white things from you, and here you go. They have done it. You can look over here, look at this. It's all white. They have managed to do it, guys. If you are building one of those Snow White PCs, they've got it in the big boy as well. The white edition of the 7600, even though it is a little bit more pricey, it's also very easy to tell that it's going to be better cooled. We have 3 fans here, way more heatsink, and it's, yeah, you just have to look at them and know this one right here is going to run either cooler or quieter. But the most quietest of them all is right up here. So this is the Aqua 24 gigabyte, and they said it is their first fully water-cooled GPU that they're offering, and it comes with an extra special BIOS. They said that working with AMD, they were able to get a whole 400 watts out of this guy, so it can really just crank out those frames for you. Now, I did have to ask, you are technically probably able to put that on this guy, but they said it's going to be very loud, which is why, of course, you want the water cooling for the maximum performance. Compared to the 2-fan model, which has a 2,695 megahertz boost clock, the 3-fan one has a little bit more at 2,725. One last thing about the GPUs that I didn't mention before is that this guy right here has a sick backplate. Wasn't able to see it because this thing right here, obviously, can't move it too much, but it is rather fancy. If you want a nice white graphics card with that fancy backplate though, but want to spend a little bit extra money, we do have the 6650 XT. How much less money? I'm not entirely sure yet, but it does boost up to 2669, so that's very nice. So you've got your graphics card and you want to see all of those frames that it's vomiting out? Well, but this one right here instead, you can see a bunch of pixels. This right here is the PG55 AKF, and it is, as the name might suggest, a 55-inch monitor with an 8K resolution. It has 252 zones of local dimming and a peak brightness of 1,000 nits, but really it is that 8K resolution that you're going to be looking for. Now, ASRock does seem to be pitching this to gamers, and maybe you have a graphics card that's able to push 8K resolution, but what I would really want this for is, first of all, just watching things is gonna look great for that. But also, like, I could imagine just cramming this full of all of your stuff, like script right here, you're watching a YouTube video over here. You could video edit on this and have like your whole display there, timeline, and like all of your files, and you don't have to worry about like, it's a whole 4K playback up there. That'd be pretty sweet. If you're really looking for that sort of like next gen gaming experience though, I would be looking at the PG32 UMF. This thing right here has 1400 nits peak brightness. That is crazy. This is a mini LED panel and it has a total of 1,152 zones of local dimming, meaning that you can get an actual proper HDR experience on this thing. And even if you start dropping frames with that big old 4K resolution, it's G-Sync and FreeSync compatible. On the back, we have a large variety of I/O with USB Type-C, 90-watt fast charging being the real star of the show. That means for many thin and light laptops, you can just plug it in with one cable and you're off to the races. What's not on the back though is Wi-Fi. I'm not entirely sure who needs this, but I'm sure someone does, because ASRock installed some Wi-Fi antenna extenders back here, go all the way up into there. Of course, I always recommend just plugging in LAN, but maybe that's not an option for you, in which case this will get you some extra downloads. On top of having a Wi-Fi antenna built in the back, the PG27QF2A has a 1440p resolution, 165 Hz refresh rate, and 400 nits peak brightness, to make it probably a really good middle ground. And in my personal opinion, I like 1440p still, because you can make sure that you can hit that 165 Hz. 4K, maybe not. But maybe the thing that your monitor is missing is another monitor. This right here, we have a 1.3-inch OLED display that can show you important things like your GPU temp, or not so important things like a GIF or something like that. It's just a fun little feature. Maybe you just have a teeny tiny bit of space on your desk though, and that's where ASRock's little mini PCs come in. This right here is the DeskMeet AM5, and you can actually fit a dual slot graphics card in here up to 200 millimeters long. You can see it sort of right down in there. Of course, this being ASRock, they have some pretty serious motherboard making chops, and the one in here is very unique. Come on over here. Inside of the DeskMeet is this motherboard right here. Well, not this exact one, this is the last gen one, but you get the basic idea. It's like a mini ITX motherboard, but with just a little bit tacked onto the back. That gives them the space for not just 2, but 4 RAM slots, as well as a bunch of I/O back here for all of your, plug-in stuff in need. The new one will support AMD 7000 series up to 65 watts, and it's pretty cool. One more thing, come back. One weird thing though, let's take a look at the back here. We've got a full-blown ATX power supply. They've gone to all of the trouble of like the custom motherboard, making the 6.5-liter chassis, but why? Well, they have a very good reason. It's cheap. Buying one of these ATX power supplies is very inexpensive, and that has been passed on to the consumer. So this guy right here, as a bare bones, comes in around $180. So you will still have to supply like the CPU up to 2 M.2s and the GPU, but still is pretty decent. If you want something that's a little bit less space on your desktop though, we have the Desk Slim. This guy right here, you don't get as large of a graphics card. As you can see, we only have the little half-height jobby here, but that is still enough for something like an A2000, the Quadro, but NVIDIA screwed up the naming on this generation. So here we've got a 300-watt TFX power supply, and also an optical drive? An optical drive that's not plugged in apparently. But this is very clearly a business-oriented machine where you might want something like that. So huge thanks to ASRock for sponsoring this video. Hit like, get subscribed, and just have a great all day. See you later.